My parents kicked me out for the golden child. Now they're homeless and begging to move into the house I bought without their help. I, a 34-year-old male, just bought my first home, a cozy house that I busted my ass for. It's not huge or fancy, but it's mine. After years of living paycheck to paycheck and saving every penny, I finally have something to call my own. Honestly, I should be celebrating, but my parents are already trying to ruin it. To understand why this pisses me off so much, you need to know my history with them. Growing up, I wasn't just the black sheep, I was the family's personal punching bag. Their built-in scapegoat for every problem under the sun. Kelly, my older sister, wasn't just the golden child, she was the crown jewel of the family. She could burn the house down, and my parents would probably hand her a marshmallow and blame me for not stopping her. It started small with stupid things that didn't make sense but still felt unfair. For example, when Kelly decided to turn the living room walls into her personal art project with permanent markers, my mom walked in, saw the mess, and immediately turned to me. "What did you do?" she asked. Kelly, standing right there with a marker in her hand, chimed in. "It wasn't me. He told me to do it." Guess who got grounded for a month? Yep, me. I didn't even have a chance to defend myself before I was sent to my room. Dinner privileges revoked. Then there was the time Kelly borrowed my dad's credit card in high school and charged over $1,000 buying makeup, clothes, and a concert ticket to see some boy band. When the bill arrived, my dad lost it. He stormed into my room, waving the credit card statement in my face, yelling about how I was reckless and disrespectful. Kelly, of course, acted shocked and horrified. "I would never do something like that," she gasped, hand over her chest like she was on some bad soap opera. It wasn't until my dad got a call from the bank about the purchases being made at a Sephora 2 towns over while I was sitting in detention at school that he realized it wasn't me. But even then, instead of grounding Kelly or taking away her privileges, my mom said, "She's just going through a phase. You should have told us she was acting out sooner. Maybe then this wouldn't have happened." What? Like it was my job to babysit her and take the fall for her crimes? By the time I was 16, I knew better than to expect fairness, but the incident that broke me still came out of nowhere. My dad's car, a brand new luxury sedan, went missing from the driveway. Apparently, Kelly had taken it for a joyride with her friends and smashed it into a guardrail. The cops were involved, and my parents were livid. Of course, Kelly told them I stole the car. She spun this whole story about how I took the keys, went out with some bad kids, and left it wrecked on purpose. I tried to tell them the truth, that I hadn't even touched the car, but they didn't believe me. My dad blew up, saying I was out of control and an embarrassment to the family. Without even giving me a chance to explain, they decided I was too much to handle and sent me to live with my grandma. This wasn't some temporary punishment or a chance to cool off. They permanently abandoned me. My dad literally said, "We can't have you here if you're going to destroy everything we've worked for." Worked for? I wasn't the one who wrecked the car, but Kelly? She got off with a slap on the wrist. By the time I was gone, my parents had bought her a car of her own. A freaking car! She cried about being traumatized by the accident, and they rewarded her with a brand new vehicle to help her rebuild her confidence. I never went back home after that. Grandma took me in and treated me better in 5 minutes than my parents had in 16 years. She didn't have much. She lived in a small house with creaky floors and old furniture, but she gave me a safe space where I didn't have to constantly watch my back. She believed me when I told her what really happened. She'd shake her head and mutter things like, "I don't know where your parents went wrong," but she never badmouthed them outright. That was just Grandma. Too good for this world. Still, it stung. My own family had thrown me away. They didn't call, didn't visit, didn't even acknowledge my existence. Meanwhile, Kelly kept thriving. She got everything handed to her on a silver platter. My parents paid for her college tuition, even though she barely went to class. When she decided she didn't vibe with her major, they bankrolled a semester off so she could figure things out. She used the time to travel around Europe with her boyfriend, taking Instagram-worthy photos of gelato in Italy and sunsets in Greece. All while I was working 2 part-time jobs to help Grandma with groceries. Then, there was the house. My parents bought Kelly a house after she barely graduated from college. A whole-ass house. When Grandma told me about it, I thought she was joking, but nope. Kelly had posted a tour of it online, showing off the granite countertops and walk-in closets. My mom even commented on the post saying, "You deserve the best, sweetheart." I sat there, staring at my phone, wondering if these were the same people who couldn't even be bothered to ask if I was still alive. The resentment kept building. I wanted to confront them, to scream at them for abandoning me and treating me like garbage. But what would it change? They didn't care. They never had. So, I stayed with Grandma, worked hard, and focused on building a life for myself. Over time, I learned to block out the bitterness. At least most of it. Still, it was hard not to compare my life to Kelly's. While she was living rent-free in her parents' purchased house, I was scraping together savings to one day afford a place of my own. While she was jetting off on vacations, I was juggling work and community college, trying to carve out some semblance of a future. But the worst part? They acted like I didn't exist. Birthdays, holidays, milestones, radio silence. One Christmas, I caved and called my mom, hoping for some kind of reconciliation. She picked up but sounded annoyed, like I'd interrupted something important. "Oh, you're still at Grandma's," she said. "Well, Kelly's hosting Christmas this year, so we're busy. Maybe next time." I didn't cry. I'd run out of tears for them a long time ago. Instead, I doubled down on my goals. I wasn't going to let their rejection define me. I worked harder, saved every penny, and slowly started to build a life I could be proud of. Fast forward to now. I recently bought my first house, a 3-bedroom home with a decent backyard. It's not about the size or status for me. It's about what it represents: freedom, security, and finally having something that's truly mine. Or, more accurately, ours. See, this isn't just my house. My grandma, the one person who's always been in my corner, is on the deed with me. After everything she's done for me, it was a no-brainer. Putting her name on the house wasn't just a gesture, it's a statement. This home belongs to the only real family I've ever had. As fate would have it, that decision would turn out to be the best insurance policy I could have asked for. We'd only been living here a few months when Grandma's health started to decline. And that hit me hard, but I wasn't about to let her struggle alone. I hired a private nurse to help take care of her, someone who could be there while I worked. It wasn't easy to juggle, but this was Grandma. She deserved nothing less. While we were settling in, I got a call. I saw Mom pop up on the screen and nearly dropped my phone out of pure shock. My parents hadn't called me in years. The last time I heard from them, I was 25, busting my ass at a warehouse job, and they called to tell me Kelly was hosting Christmas, so I probably wouldn't feel comfortable coming. Now, out of nowhere, my mom decides to play concerned parent? Yeah, I wasn't buying it. Still, I answered. "Hi, sweetheart," she chirped, her tone so sugary I almost gagged. "We heard you got a house. That's such a big step. You must be so proud." "Yeah," I replied cautiously. "What do you want?" The fake cheerfulness vanished like a popped bubble. "Well, your father and I are in a bit of a bind. You know how things have been tough for Kelly lately. We had to help her out. It's been really hard on us financially, and we're losing the house. We were thinking, since you've got all that space, maybe we could stay with you for a while, just until we get back on our feet." There it was, the audacity, the absolute gall. I almost laughed. After everything they'd done, kicking me out, abandoning me, ignoring me for years, they really thought I'd just open my doors to them? "No," I said flatly. She gasped, like I'd slapped her. "But we're family." "Were we family when you dumped me on Grandma?" I snapped. "Were we family when you gave Kelly everything and left me to fend for myself?" "Sorry, but no, I'm not your backup plan." Her tone turned icy. "I can't believe you're being so selfish. We raised you," she said. "Grandma raised me," I corrected. "And I'm not giving you a damn thing." I hung up, shaking with anger. But it didn't stop there. Over the next few days, the guilt trip texts started rolling in. My dad sent me a novel-length message about how they'd sacrificed so much for me, and how I was turning my back on my own blood. Kelly even had the audacity to chime in, calling me pathetic for letting our parents suffer. This, coming from the woman who caused the entire mess in the first place. See, Kelly's house, the one my parents bought for her, got foreclosed because she maxed out her credit cards trying to live like some Instagram influencer. When that house of cards came crashing down, she ran crying to Mom and Dad, who drained their savings to bail her out. But it wasn't enough. Now they were broke, losing their own home, and Kelly was living with them again, still mooching off whatever scraps they had left. Meanwhile, Grandma and I were thriving. I got a better job soon after moving, which meant I could start putting money into upgrades for the house. Even with Grandma's nurse bills stacking up, we made it work. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. But, of course, my parents couldn't let me have peace. They showed up at the house one afternoon, uninvited, banging on the door like they were the cops. When I opened it, my mom immediately tried to push her way inside. "We need to talk," she said, her voice sharp. "No, we don't," I replied, blocking the doorway. "Whatever you're here for, the answer is no." My dad stepped forward, looking angrier than I'd ever seen him. "We're your parents. We gave you everything, and this is how you repay us?" "You gave me nothing," I said calmly. "Grandma gave me everything, and this house, it's mine and hers. You're not welcome here." My mom's voice hit a new pitch. "This house wouldn't exist without us. You wouldn't exist without us. You owe us." I laughed bitterly. Grandma finally had enough. She came to the door, frail but firm, her voice calm and unwavering. "This is our house," she said, her eyes narrowing at my parents. "And if you don't leave, I'll call the police." That shut them up real quick. They stormed off, muttering under their breath about how I was ungrateful and selfish. A week later, I heard through mutual acquaintances that my parents were telling everyone I'd stolen the house from them. According to their version of events, they had helped me financially, and I had cut them out once I got the keys, which of course was complete and utter nonsense. Every dime that went into this house was mine, and the deed with Grandma's name on it proved it. Kelly was still mooching off them, still causing chaos. Apparently she'd maxed out another credit card, this one co-signed by my dad, and now they were on the hook for even more debt. Their house officially went into foreclosure, and the three of them were crammed into a tiny rental apartment. Meanwhile, I'm finally building a life that is mine, not because of my parents but in spite of them. Every time I walk through the front door, I'm reminded of what real family looks like, and that's worth more than anything they could have ever offered. As for my parents and Kelly, karma has a way of catching up with people. They're stuck in that tiny rental, drowning in debt and drama. From what I hear, Kelly's already on her third big idea to get rich quick. They put in greed, selfishness, and lies, and now they're reaping exactly what they sowed. Me, I've got peace, stability, and the kind of life they'll never understand. Funny how life works, isn't it? Hi Reddit, it's been a while. You won't believe what happened since my last post. I thought cutting off my parents and Kelly would be the end of their nonsense, but clearly, I underestimated just how far they'd go. Fast forward a few months, and life was finally settling into a peaceful rhythm. Grandma passed away in her sleep. Losing her left a hole in my heart that I don't think will ever fully heal, but I was determined to honor her by continuing to live the life we built together. I didn't have the luxury of wallowing. She wouldn't have wanted that, and honestly, I owed it to her to keep going. But peace in my life is apparently something my parents and Kelly find intolerable. Less than a week after Grandma's funeral, they started circling like vultures. My mom called, putting on her most syrupy sweet voice, the one she uses when she's about to try to manipulate someone. "We just wanted to check on you," she said, fake concern dripping off every word. "It must be so hard losing Grandma. She was such a special lady." I nearly laughed. The same people who hadn't visited Grandma in years now wanted to act like grieving saints? Spare me. "I'm fine," I said, keeping my voice flat. "What do you want?" "Well," she said, dragging out the word like she was savoring it. "Your father and I have been talking, and we think it's time to come together as a family. You know, Grandma's house could be a fresh start for all of us." There it was, the real reason for the call. I didn't even let her finish her pitch before hanging up. They didn't waste time making their next move. A certified letter showed up a few days later. My parents were suing me. Their claim? Since Grandma's name was on the deed, half the house was part of her estate, and they were entitled to that share as her next of kin. Never mind that I'd paid for the house with my own money. Never mind that I'd put Grandma on the deed as an honor, not because she contributed financially. It didn't matter to them. They saw an opportunity and latched onto it like parasites. I wasn't about to roll over and let them take what was mine. I called Alyssa, my lawyer. She reviewed the letter and explained that, while their argument wasn't airtight, It wasn't completely baseless either. Technically, with Grandma's name on the deed, they could argue that her share was part of her estate. It didn't mean they were right, but it did mean we'd have to fight. They're grasping at straws, Alyssa assured me, but we'll need to be thorough. This could get messy. The first step in the legal process was discovery, which basically meant both sides had to gather and exchange all the evidence they had. I handed over everything: bank statements showing I'd made every payment on the house, emails with the real estate agent, even texts with Grandma where we talked about putting her name on the deed as a symbolic gesture. Alyssa said it was airtight. My parents, on the other hand, decided to get creative. Their lawyer, this smug guy with slicked back hair and a bad suit, argued that since Grandma's name was on the deed, it was proof that she had a financial stake in the house. They even dug up old family photos of Grandma sitting on the porch or helping me plant flowers in the yard, claiming it was evidence that she was a co-owner. The audacity didn't stop there. They tried to twist the fact that I'd hired a nurse for Grandma in her final months into an argument that I was managing her share of the property. According to them, my paying for her care wasn't an act of love. It was some kind of financial arrangement. I couldn't believe the lengths they were going to just to paint me as the bad guy. Alyssa wasn't fazed. Let them dig their hole, she said. The more ridiculous their claims, the easier it'll be to dismantle them in court. While the legal process crawled forward, my parents and Kelly launched a full-on smear campaign against me. Kelly, true to form, took to social media with her crocodile tears. She posted some long, dramatic rant about how I was stealing the family home and leaving my poor, helpless parents homeless. The comments were filled with sympathy from people who had no idea what the real story was. Stuff like, how could he do this to his own family? And blood is thicker than water. It would have been laughable if it wasn't so infuriating. These were the same people who had kicked me out as a teenager, who hadn't even visited Grandma while she was sick, and now they wanted to play the victims? The hypocrisy was almost impressive. What really got me was the way they dragged Grandma into it. My parents started telling anyone who would listen that I'd manipulated her into signing over the house. They painted me as some kind of greedy, conniving grandson who'd taken advantage of a frail old woman. It was disgusting. I didn't engage, though. I knew getting into a public back and forth would just add fuel to their fire. Instead, I focused on gathering more evidence to prove my case. Before we could head to court, the judge ordered us into mediation. Apparently standard procedure to try to resolve disputes outside of court. I wasn't optimistic, but Alyssa said it was worth going through the motions. The mediator was this exhausted-looking woman who clearly dealt with family drama for a living. She started by asking if there was any way we could come to an agreement. My mom immediately launched into her pity act, talking about how they were struggling and how it was only fair that they get half the house. Fair would have been treating me like a human being when I was a kid, I said. Fair would have been not abandoning me when I needed you the most. You don't deserve a dime. My dad tried to step in, puffing himself up like he was going to intimidate me. We're your parents, he said, his voice low and threatening. We gave you life. You owe us. I owe you nothing, I snapped. You made your choices. Now live with them. The mediator tried to smooth things over, suggesting a compromise where I'd buy out their share of the house. I laughed out loud. Not happening, I said. I'm not paying them for something they never earned. After hours of going in circles, it was clear mediation wasn't going to work. The case was heading to trial, and I was ready for whatever they threw at me. The day of the trial finally arrived, and I was ready to put an end to this circus. My parents and Kelly showed up, looking like they were auditioning for a daytime courtroom drama. They thought they had this in the bag. Meanwhile, I walked in with Alyssa, my lawyer, who looked calm and confident as ever. If there's one thing I learned from this whole mess, it's that having someone confident in your corner makes all the difference. Alyssa had been working tirelessly to build our case, and I trusted her completely. The room was packed with people who'd heard about the case, thanks to Kelly's social media antics. I recognized a few faces, old neighbors, distant relatives, even a couple of my CO workers. It was surreal seeing my life put on display like this, but I kept my focus on the one thing that mattered, proving the truth. Their lawyer started with a dramatic opening statement. He painted my parents as devoted family members who had been wronged by a greedy son. He leaned heavily on the fact that Grandma's name was on the deed, claiming it was irrefutable proof that she co-owned the house. I rolled my eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. This guy was laying it on thick, and I could tell the judge wasn't impressed. She sat there with a no-nonsense expression, her pen tapping against the desk as if she couldn't wait for him to wrap it up. The bulk of the trial was spent going through evidence. Alyssa presented everything we had. The bank statements showing every mortgage payment came from my account, the email chain with the real estate agent confirming the purchase, details, and even Grandma's will, which didn't mention the house at all because she knew it wasn't hers to leave. Their lawyer tried to poke holes in the evidence, but it was like watching someone throw pebbles at a brick wall. He kept coming back to the same argument: the name on the deed proves co-ownership. Alyssa was ready for this. She brought in a real estate expert to testify that a name on a deed doesn't necessarily indicate financial contribution or ownership, it can be symbolic. The expert explained that it's not uncommon for people to add loved ones to deeds as a gesture of trust or security, especially in close-knit families. It was a devastating blow to their case. Alyssa then addressed the judge directly. "Your Honor, this isn't a case of shared ownership. It's a case of one family trying to exploit a technicality for financial gain." The most satisfying part of the trial was watching Alyssa cross-examine my mom. My mom had come prepared with her usual crocodile tears, but Alyssa wasn't having it. Alyssa began, her tone polite but firm. "Can you tell the court how much money you or your husband contributed to the purchase of this house?" My mom hesitated, her face turning red. "Well, we didn't contribute financially, but that's not the point. It was always understood that this house was part of the family." "Understood by whom?" Alyssa pressed. "Because we've seen no evidence to suggest that my client ever agreed to this arrangement." My mom stammered, trying to pivot. "We're his parents, we raised him, isn't that enough?" Alyssa didn't miss a beat. "This isn't about parenting, it's about property ownership. If you didn't contribute financially, and there's no written agreement supporting your claim, how do you justify your demand for half of this house?" My mom had no answer. She looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. After several days of testimony and evidence, it was finally time for the judge to make her ruling. She started by acknowledging the emotional nature of the case, but emphasized that her decision would be based on facts, not feelings. "The evidence is clear," she said. "While the name on the deed might suggest co-ownership at a glance, the financial records tell a different story. The plaintiff paid for this property in its entirety. The inclusion of his grandmother's name on the deed was a symbolic gesture, not a financial agreement. As such, the defendants have no legal claim to this house." Hearing those words felt like a weight had been lifted off my chest. So glad it's over now. The house is mine, officially, undeniably mine. After the ruling, my parents tried to guilt-trip me one last time. My mom cornered me in the parking lot, tears streaming down her face. "How could you do this to us?" she sobbed. "We're your parents, we're struggling." "You've been struggling for years," I said coldly. "And it's not my problem. You made your bed, now lie in it." She didn't have a response to that. Since then, I've gone completely no contact. They've tried reaching out through mutual acquaintances, but I shut it down every time. From what I hear, my parents are stuck in their tiny rental, still blaming everyone but themselves for their problems.